My name is Tucker Johnson, and I'm your host today as we experience Nimdzi Live, where we talk about the latest and greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all that fun stuff global companies need to delight their international customers. On this program, we invite guests who like to have fun and have some value to add for our audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform to those with a good story or a good data set. So let us know if there are any topics you'd like covered or guests we should reach out to for future episodes. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you are subscribed to or following Nimdzi Insights. Now's your chance. We're coming to you live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, of course, where all of our old episodes are archived in a playlist over there, and also Instagram. We're trying something new today, so technical difficulties may abound, but if you're following us on Instagram, then welcome. It's good to see you. Before we get started today, I wanted to give a quick plug for the Nimdzi Localization Industry Events Calendar. If you're not familiar with this excellent resource, go over to nimdzi.com/events. And this is just really great. If you want to get out there, if you want to network, if you want to figure out what events are happening in our industry, there's some that are remote, there's some that are local. If you want to get some more stamps on your passports, like just this week, we've got April 2nd, April 2nd, April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd. There's a ton of events in our industry, so you can go check this out, plan your next travel. You can subscribe to the calendar, sync it directly to your Google Calendar or your LinkedIn, and it's just really a great resource out there for you. So go check that out, nimdzi.com/events. Now, getting into it, today's topic, Aleksander, Murauski and Denis Zhilko are going to be discussing raw machine translation for localization and why it can be a risky move. We are going to be taking a look at how different language models or large language models can produce translations that vary widely in quality. Relying on these imperfect translations can lead to serious problems and poor results, especially when delivering accurate and effective content. Aleksander is the CEO of Alconost with over 18 years of experience helping companies tackle translation and localization challenges. A former web developer and product manager, he also creates software solutions like Nitro, a 24/7 translation service, and Pikaban, I think I'm pronouncing it right, an ad creative generator. He's passionate about UI and UX and video storytelling. Also with us today is Denis, a product manager at Alconost. He is a problem solver who thrives on bringing order to chaos. He's always open to meeting new people and gaining fresh perspective. And, I have a little intro script written about Alconost, but I think it might be better. Well, first of all, welcome to the show, gentlemen. It's really good to have you here. I want to turn it over first. Tell us a little bit about Alconost and your company. What do you do? Who are the clients that you work with, and what problems do you help them with?
So Alconost was founded like 20 years ago already. It all started with me, who was a software developer, and I produced some software and I sold it on the internet at times. It was difficult, and I obviously translated into a few languages. And then I had some friends that would ask me to help them with translations into English that time, and I helped them. And then I had a girlfriend, and she was a speaker of German language. And I just suggested that she would just translate their softwares into German. And this is where it started. And then with the money I started to get for the translations came responsibility for the quality, because just that quality of German was not very good. But that started from that, and we've been operating on the market for 20 years, and our customers comprise of game developers, app developers, website, e-commerce providers, different from different industries. Mostly it's software developers. We use different platforms. We're a platform agnostic multilingual vendor. We work with 120 languages. Been serving for thousands of clients. So that's a brief history of Alkenost. And we are founded by developers, and we are developers by to this day.
So it's kind of in your DNA working with developers. It's your
Yes.
background, so it's kind of in your DNA, as I would say. And that brings us to you, Dennis. Tell us a little bit about what your role is.
Actually, I spend my days as a product manager working specifically on AI translations and machine translation plus editing service. My work over the past few years has been concentrated on integrating these powerful new technologies into our localization pipelines. So essentially, I spend my days figuring out how AI and humans can best collaborate to effectively bridge language gaps, I say.
Well, and that brings us nicely into this topic, talking about AI. AI is what everyone's talking about today. Everyone wants to talk about AI. I mean, and I always think it's useful to remind ourselves that machine translation has been around for a while, right? So it's now kind of coming more into the public consciousness. People are more aware of it. Why? Because it's kind of piggybacking on all of this AI stuff, and there's a lot of overlap between machine translation and large language models, and that's we're going to talk about what the pitfalls of using some of these different solutions are today. But maybe we can start off by just answering the question, what's the difference between machine translation and large language models? Or is there a difference? I mean, it's kind of a trick question, right? Like, is there a difference? And what are the subtle differences, whether either in foundational technology or in the use cases for it?
Well, it's all about terms, about the definitions. So
Right.
the translation with the LLMs is also machine translation. It's a subclass of machine translation where a machine just translates. Indeed, there are two main different types of machine translation engines. So now we are talking mostly about LLMs, large language models, but there has been always things like statistical engines like Google Translate, neural agents that are not large language models, but to some extent they are language models to just trained for specific tasks, but they are not large language models. There are lots of translation engines, as you mentioned. But speaking about the machine translation, I see that's LLMs and NMTs are machine translation.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's what are you doing with it, right? But there's not all engines are created equally, right? So. And I'm sure you deal with clients that have misconceptions about what machine translation is and what machine translation can do what are some use cases where it works really well? What are some use cases where it doesn't work very well? What do you find when talking with your clients? What are some of the biggest misconceptions out there about machine translation?
I guess let's start with the most classic one, is to consider LLMs or any NMT engines as a complete replacement, the human involvement in localization. Believing these translations are good on its own, this is the place where many projects run into trouble. The next thing is illusion of simplicity. Many companies think that using MT is just kind of copy-paste thing, but in reality, it requires careful setup, prompting, if we are talking about LLMs, and technical know-how. Ignoring these I would say it leads to poor and risky results.
Yeah, and that's regardless whether you're using machine translation or large language models. And just going back to that, because we had a question come up in chat here from Susanna. LLMs are machine translators, but not the same. Where again lies the difference, please? And I'm going to take a stab at this just because, and I'll turn it over to you. But my understanding is it's more in the foundational technology that's being used here. There's different types of machine. You mentioned statistical machine translation, which goes back quite a ways, largely getting replaced in recent years by neural machine translation. And nowadays we have these large language models, which can do translation. So when we're talking about machine translation, we could be talking about any one of those. It's more about just what is the foundational technology behind the scenes that's being used for this. Is that an accurate, it's an oversimplification, sure, but is that an accurate description?
I would say yes. Speaking about LLMs, it's really not an engine for translation. It's just general purpose models that can do translation, and they are generative. They are some part of them is post-trained for the translation task, but generally it's not a translator. It's a generator of text.
It's not what it's designed for. Right, it can be trained on machine translation, but it's not. It's designed to generate text, not necessarily
essence,
to convert text.
Yes, and through this nature, the most discussed problem arises with hallucinations when the LLM would translate something that is not present on the source text. So prompted to translate many times the same thing, you might get different translations. So this leads us to inconsistency of the translations. So the nature of the generational nature causes the problems we have with the LLMs performing the translation. They are very creative. Sometimes in translation, you should not be so creative. And also they are, it's not about only hallucinations. There are lots of other things. To run an LLM translation, a translation with an LLM, you need a platform. You need a setup, and this setup could be tricky. So if you ask an LLM to translate without a glossary, for example, then you obviously run into trouble with the terms consistency. So this implies that to ask an LLM for to do a translation, you must feed it with the glossary, and feeding the glossary requires large context window, and then you must somehow split the glossary through some vector database to feed only the terms that are relevant to the prompt. So without a glossary, you get in trouble with the terms consistency, and also when it comes to work with the translation memory, that's also tricky. Without a good platform, you cannot use effectively the LLM. So there is a misconception that a developer of a software could just prompt a ChatGPT to translate their JSON file, and that's it.
Right.
That's not so. It's not. It's tricky. It requires some.
It might work.
Just
right, depending upon your definition of work.
Yeah, for small files, it works. It really works. And I know lots of developers, especially for small indie developers who just translate their small games. They just prompt ChatGPT, or they just use the OpenAI API to perform the translations. This becomes tricky when it comes to feeding the glossary, the translation memory. They have then feeding the style guide, and overall supervision of the quality. If you translate with an LLM into 20 languages, then you have okay, 20 files in some with some characters you don't understand. Can you trust it? So it's kind of philosophical. There's a misconception that you can trust some raw MT, and that's it. When you come to a localization provider, what you buy is the quality, and you buy this trust. You entrust the quality, and there is somebody who is responsible for what is happening. And in case of just feeding your string resources into some machine translation, this responsibility is yours. So two things: the responsibility and the outsourcing. You can do the translation yourself, of course. You can set up everything, but you come to a localization provider because you are in another business. You're a developer who is developing and who's operating a game, for example.
Yeah.
And you're not a localization agency. You don't want to build inside your in-house translators or freelance translators, or you don't want to build this framework to use LLMs for translation. So this outsourcing thing, which is left to people, and this responsibility, somebody must ensure that the LLM translated good. There might be so if you we had such a case with if you translate a game about some military things, and if you have a word like explosive or something like this in this in the translation source, then if you translate it with LLM, you will get this. I am unable to translate this because it's post-trained. It's aligned to be secure, to not translate some dangerous things, and it's things that translating a game about tanks is dangerous because there is a word tank, and if you do not check, if you do not understand Chinese language, for example, you get your string resources saying that I'm a language model translating this. I don't want to translate it,
Right.
And you never see this without a localization testing or review, at least review. Yeah.
Yeah, and you make a good point about like why do companies hire translation companies, and it's because translation companies are experts at translation. And if I'm a software development company, I'm an expert at developing software. And just the same way, like here, I'm a big believer in hiring experts to do what they do best, right? Here at Nimdzi Insights, we don't manage our own payroll. For example, we have employment, payroll, HR company that we outsource that to, right? Because we're not experts at payroll. We don't manage, when it comes time to do our taxes every year, we don't do our own taxes. We hire an accountant because they are the expert at that. And this kind of the same idea is, why would I do my translations internally when I can just hire an expert who's going to do it better and frankly going to do it cheaper, right? And just avoid some of those pitfalls that I'm going to fall into because I don't know what I don't know there, right? And also it's is someone people always people buy from people, right? People want to talk to people, and if I'm dealing with a machine and something goes wrong, who do I call in the middle of the night? Who do I fire if something goes wrong? Right? Who do I promote if something goes right? It's hard to do that with a machine. I want a throat to choke or a shoulder to cry on, right? When something goes wrong, and I can't choke a machine and I can't cry on a machine's shoulder. I want to get into some of the chat here, people, before I get too far behind it here. Some questions in here. Nicole, oh hi Nicole. Do you believe that AI will soon be able to do the QA step that now relies heavily on humans? So we're talking, and this kind of gets to the topic of what we're talking about today, is some of the pitfalls with raw machine translation. Why it's important to not just use machine translation in most cases, in some cases, right? So Nicole's asking, do you believe that the machines are going to be able to do the QA step, especially with how rapidly the technology is evolving, or why not? So just a background here for everybody is traditionally machine translation. If machine translation is being used with high priority content, then it goes through the post editing process. So a translator or a linguist who's trained in the skill of post editing is going to take a look at that machine translation, sign off on it, change it, edit it, post edit it, right? Nowadays, with with large language models being trained to do various different things, how close are we to having machines reviewing machines, essentially?
I would say it depends. It depends on content type. It depends on domain. And the best way to answer is to check your own content and the models you're going to use. Run several tests and understand and see if you can rely on this model and what edits this model is making. If it's okay, why not? You can try. But I think we're a bit far from this complete automation.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know people are
and-
playing
and-
around with it, right? The question isn't
Well-
like, can they do it? The question is, can I trust it? I think. So, Alexander.
Yeah, just I have another opinion on the topic on this.
Yeah.
So let's argue a little bit.
I love it.
Because I think that we're pretty much close to the idea of automating the review process with LLMs. It 100% can be built and will be built, and even we are building it. We are just, but that's a kind of experiment for us also. We now we have some translation, source and target, and sometimes context, and glossary and translation memory, of course, everything. And we've built a tool around AI, around LLMs, so that different kinds of LLMs, they just go and evaluate the quality of the translation. So they judge on the scale of from 0 to 100, four tiers of the quality, and they list the years in the translations, and that's pretty much interesting experiment. And we look at it, and I'm pretty much sure that there are already platforms that are building it in, and it will be available very soon, technically. What you do with this is another question. It really depends, like Denis says, on the type of content you have, on your priority, whether you just go and just review by LLMs. What LLMs will do on the platforms, this will come very soon. They will create issues. Like take, for example, we're working very much with the crowding platform, and every time a reviewer reviews the text, they can just make some corrections, or they can ask questions, or they just create issues about the translation. And this can be done by LLM, and will be present in every platform very soon. So automated post editing by LLM, this is 100% will happen. If it's not already happened, technically it will be present.
And I've seen, just a second, that I've looked, the research that I've looked at says this is actually one of the areas where large language models are doing a pretty darn good job. This isn't 2 years ago, a year ago, when nobody was really sure what large language models could do and what they couldn't do. Remember, there was a time when everyone thought AI could do everything. Well, nowadays we're a little bit more realistic. There's some things it does well, there's some things it doesn't do great. And the research that I've looked at says that automated quality assurance is actually an area where the machines are performing pretty darn well.
That's because machines tend to understand other machines better than humans.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah, if they are biased, might be biased. But I envisioned the pipelines where you have not on just one LLM, judging on the quality of another LLM or human, but there will be several agents that would do their job and come to some just average conclusion. So I envision that there will be several engines, several LLMs judging on the quality, and if they just show the same thing, then it might be true. What I see that they will raise issues so that the human will come and see that somewhere that something is good or not. And in our current work with clients, they pretty much often started to come to us with the task, I want the AI pipeline to reduce costs to up to 35% or 50% or whatever. And we build those pipelines, and this quality threshold, this agreement on what LLMs, what particularly they do, it becomes a part of our contract. We disclose everything with our client because we sell trust. We are so the agency. What we trade is trust, and to make it absolutely clear how it will happen, we agree on every aspect of the how do we define quality, what threshold we allow for years, and how we use LLMs. And for some not critical materials, non-critical languages, the client would be prepared that the translation would be done by LLM, and LLMs make mistakes. This is under ChatGPT and Claude. There is always this disclaimer.
Yeah.
Claude makes mistakes. This is a part of the contract. We disclose everything, and we agree on how it will work. And then if we agree that the LLM would just evaluate the other LLM and fix the translation of the other LLM, and we make it as a rule, then it's okay. This we expect. We just manage our expectations.
Yeah.
And that's a good pipeline. As I said, this just one more thought that this LQA, localization quality assurance, it's not only about review of the review with or without a source of the text. It also can be extended to the quality testing of the localized build of a software. So when we do this, our software testers, they go in their locales and in their regions, download the app, just click through all the screenshots by some scenario. Or we do this with screenshots. The developer would generate like 100 screenshots, and we go through every and create issues. So for screenshots, I'm just pretty much sure that tools like Claude or ChatGPT with this multimodal update recently with pictures, they pretty much capable of doing a good job reviewing what's on the screen.
They do.
Whether
good enough, right? For now, right? They do a decent job, and I have actual use cases, case studies where Nimdzi's worked with clients to implement that, not to name any names. But it's a very promising technology because it allows that whole cumbersome testing process to happen a lot quicker. The argument is around whether it's better or not. I would make the argument that even human testers don't catch everything, right? There might be a few more false positives, but it's allowing that testing process to go a lot quicker and just be more streamlined. And you're dealing with exceptions. You're dealing with false positives rather than having to go through and look at everything individually. I wanted to get back to chat, not to cut you off here, but I want to keep track of this here. With AI training progress, Veronica writes, with AI training progress, will it be possible for generative AI models to become text translators? I think that's kind of what we've been talking about, right? They already are text translators. They can be. They're just not specifically trained like a NMT engine would be to be optimized for translation. Susanna says, Susanna, blah, blah, blah. LLM is not for translation, but for generation. Okay, here we're kind of answering it here. Though large language models can translate as part of its functions. It's backing up what I was just talking about here. Thanks for that clarification. The generational nature of large language models can create problems such as hallucinations and other things, such as large language models lacking a glossary, which is crucial for professional accurate translation. Thus, machine translation platform is specifically designed for professional translation. Large language models are not. You know what? Like Susanna, I should have just read your comment before I tried to answer that question because you put it a lot nicer than I did. Swearam says the source text often needs to be organized before the translation stage, especially when using neural machine translation and large language models. Tell us about pre-processing techniques. I am sure this can have a strong effect on the output. I ain't even going to try to answer that one, gentlemen. Pre-processing techniques.
Yeah, it's well, in our experience, we usually work with very strongly defined formats like JSON files, like XML. Those texts are already structured. But when you deal with some PDFs, some documents that are not structured, you must pre-process it to extract the texts. And there are OCR software that help extract the text. And LLMs, they're pretty much good at this also. So just feeding the screenshot, you can extract the text if you need. But pre-processing, I would say it's more for us. Pre-processing is creating a project. So even if you have files coming from a developer or some I don't know some product catalog, they have some format, but you need the glossary. To build a glossary, you need to build a style guide. And if they have the translation memory, you must ensure that it's not polluted with, say, LLM or bad translations. So it must be analyzed and cleaned. And this is what I think is data pre-processing. Another thing is content categorization. So every company would come with not just an app strings from UI UX. They have marketing, they have support, they have newsletters, blog posts. They have several locales. Some of the contents they translate. They some of not translate. They just have different pipelines, and to analyze it, to just build. So this is the building. This is a project planning. This is localization planning, I would say. So we talk to clients and build this setup, understand what they really need, how often they will be updating it. So building the pipelines and before you translate, you definitely need to do many things, which is content preparation. Especially the very important thing is translation memory. Sometimes they would come with polluted translation memory. They have translated with ChatGPT or, for example, of an old version or some Google Translate, and they say, well, we have a translation memory. And nobody approved that. No human just had a look on that translation memory, and it's garbage. And for the larger companies, it's they order the cleaning of translation memory, preparing so that it can be useful. And the same goes with the glossaries.
Yeah, and that's a good use case because translation memory management and cleaning can be a really daunting task. I've worked on some of those projects, and a lot of times it's just hard to justify the expense that comes with it. But nowadays with large language models, it's becoming much more accessible and much more realistic that you can actually go through and scrub or review an entire translation memory. Also, oh, and just to follow up, just Rerum says techniques like language filtering, deduplication, tokenization, and normalization improve translation quality. Absolutely. And one thing that I've heard chatter about is using large language models, not necessarily for the translation component of it, not even necessarily for the QA component of it, but for analyzing the source text. You say you need to classify the source text. We're talking about metadata. Is it marketing material? Is it legal? Is it what's the style? Blah, blah, blah. And being able to really understand what is the content that's being translated and how do I select a machine translation engine that's appropriate for that? How do I make sure that we're selecting the right translator, post editor to look at it? And also to kind of clean up the source text, because I don't care how great your glossary is, if the people that are writing the source content aren't sticking to the source terminology, it's not going to lead to a good translation. Before I get into more comments here, Dennis, I want to give you an opportunity to pipe in here. I've been talking over you.
I think the most important thing is to categorize the content, because each type of content should be translated differently. At least on our practice, we can say that. And I would also say that the source content should be free of code, because LLMs are bad at translating tagged content. For example, files like HTML or XML. They sometimes can corrupt code of software strings, maybe, or I mean, software. Let it be code of software strings, or maybe they can damage website layout. So we need to be extremely cautious with that.
Yeah, it's really
even trained post-trained to have an input as JSON and output as JSON. The LLMs can break, like quotes or double quotes can break your JSON output. Sometimes you ask to translate these 10 lines and you get 9. And sometimes you ask for please make it 30 characters long, no more, and you get 31. And those are many tricks. And sometimes you send some tag and not some custom tag you've invented in your software for like placeholder, and you get back this placeholder in just in a different way. So there are many tricks that are now they are avoidable if using good localization platform. That is, the developers of the platform, they are pretty much aware about these tricks, but it's sometimes unstable. Unstable. And the question was about the selection of the right model. That's a very good question. So basically, in our experience, what we do, we have some tests of language pairs and models. So this like a table of how the models perform in every language pair, and but that's not enough. Because when it comes to translating the exact contents, if you're a game developer and you come to translate something, maybe GPT-4o would do better than Gemini. Maybe Gemini. Now Gemini is number one. 2 weeks ago, the tests showed that for game domain, it was GPT. We run this test again and again, and we do this for a specific content of the client. To see what languages perform better. If we take languages like if you translate from Japanese to Korean or Japanese to Chinese, then it might happen so that DeepSeek is much more clear regarding the translation. So we just have the pipeline to test, and we just charge if you come to us and well, what language model should I select for my 12 languages? we say, let's run the test, and this will cost you this, and that's it. So it's kind of service. But if you're serious about ordering translation, then we do this, of course, free of charge. For French, we see that Mistral is translating good, better than others. For Polish, for some of our clients' game setup, surprisingly, after the tests, just DeepL with the glossary just won the metrics. We run it through like against 10 metrics, standard like Comet, Blue, some I don't know remember the names. Dennis is remembering, and also human evaluation was one of the metric. And surprisingly, for this type of content, just DeepL performs better in Polish, because ChatGPT doesn't have much data on Polish. That for all research languages, it's you better select
Alex,
the engine. Yeah.
yeah, you just remind me about another, I think, very important thing when you preparing your source content for translation is context. Even sophisticated models can lose the plot in longer documents. This leads to declining quality or inconsistencies. LLMs struggle with implemented meanings or context, which is not explicitly stated in the source content. So as part of our preparation, we sometimes create a kind of context. We put it in different ways, but from my perspective, this is mandatory thing if you translated huge amount of content.
Yeah, good point. I would say that when you're when you're preparing your, say, a game or an app for localization, you do internationalization, right? You're just extracting this the string resources to separate files, so that and you run at least 2 languages from the very beginning to ensure that your app is localizable. And I would say that the UX copywriters, the UX writers, would very soon be writing not only the captions, just the text in the game, but also writing the context for every single line. When they keep in mind that this would be translated by some machine or LLM, or just to give more context for a human translator, they would write 2 lines: source text and context. And that's, I would say, I would do, if I were doing some game, I would do this. It doesn't cost you much whether you just add some line that just gives some more context.
Well,
but it helps
also,
a lot.
If the writers are using generative AI as they should be, as they will be moving forward, then they're going to be much more productive, and they're going to have time to do that. It's something that generative AI can actually help with. And this is a big part of, what I'm seeing with generative AI is, people asking, will it help me reduce costs? And it's like, yes, though I think the more interesting question is, will it help me do more with the same amount of budget or more with less, right? So it's those famous 3 words: more with less. So yes, I can reduce cost using it, but more interesting is, how do I take the same budget that I've been using and actually do all of those things that I've wanted to do for years, but it's not prioritized in the budget. And
yeah, there's kind of shift of the budget,
right.
If you have a software development company and you're producing some software, some web services, some software as a service, so 2 years ago, we needed like 5 programmers, five software developers, and 1 product manager. And now we have we just in different way. We just need 5 product managers and 1 software developer. I would say so, because product managers, they can create more. They just create almost just working things with Claude, just generating some UIs, writing plenty of text, this is the reason. In the past, they were sitting with the designers at night, designing buttons, colors, and everything, and now it's obsolete. You just go with the code generator like Cursor, and you get the working prototype. You don't need even programmers for some minimal prototype.
Yeah.
So, but it costs you lots of time. So the product managers they started to spend much more time doing more, of course, but there is a shift. And also there's a shift with the translators. They are moving towards the reviewer role. Even 5 years ago, they were not already typing much. They would just select from suggestions from translation memory or from Google Translate or DeepL or some other suggestions. They would be selecting and correcting something, selecting the variants and just correcting something. That would be the flow, not typing much. And now they are also, so it was already more like a reviewer tasks. And now it's more reviewer. You just don't select any suggestions. They are right there, and you just read it and understand. And this is what they are paid for. This is the value. They read and they approve, and they don't write, but they read. And to read, you can read you cannot read 10 pages per second, right? Absolutely no. You just can work as a reader like 2 or 3 times faster than a writer. I can write just very quickly from my head. I can read just 3 times maybe faster if I want to deep dive into the contents to understand what the line is about. So it's slow reading. And when somebody comes in and say, well, I want a 90% discount for the translation because it's made by machine, then it doesn't work in this way. If there is a human reviewer, then it's like 35%, 50% discount. This will work, but not 90%. But if we agree that we don't check 100% of text, then it's okay. If we agree that we check only the strings that LLM says they are not properly translated, there are problems. Then, but it's our agreement. Then that can be bigger discounts. But if you take the reviewer, it's translator. It's not 90% discount. No, you are reading.
This is a very frequent case.
Yeah. I understand. I've been around. I've had that conversation many times. And I think what you're getting at here, and a point that you've made well and is being made in the comments too, is that I think there can be a misalignment or a misunderstanding of where the value is being added. And the value isn't necessarily being added by the physical just by the physical practical translation of the words from one language to another. The value, as you say, we don't sell words, we sell trust, right? And all of the things that come with that. And I wanted to bring up a comment here from Wojciech. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm sorry. Veronica Hermida, responding to Veronica. Of course, you can get a good text from AI. The human translator doesn't take money for typing the text, though, but for vouching with their entire life experience and knowledge that a given text is the best possible option in a given context. AI, in and of itself, will never be able to provide trust, and as such is worth as much as a medical textbook you can read yourself instead of going to an actual physician who will take into account your whole content based on his or her lifetime experience. And I think that's just a really good way of summarizing this concept of we don't sell translations, we sell trust.
And where is value created? This one more little philosophy here. So the value, if you go to a designer, I mean any kind of designer, what you are paying for is, in the case of the designer, you're paying for the choice the designer makes instead of you. So the designer just fixes something and you like it, and they are professional, but they make the choice. between A or B, and you pay for this choice. And coming to the translators, if they choose between A and B, this is the value. They say this is like in reinforcement learning, somebody must decide whether it's A or B. So if the translator in its using his largest LLM in the head, the biggest one in the world, they make a choice, A or B. Review, is it true or it can be fixed or not. We pay, in the end of the day, we pay for the choice. And the choice is what makes us different from machines. Machines don't have intents, they don't do a choice, we choose. And this is a kind of philosophy. What makes us human is our just choice.
Yeah. I'm frequently reminded of this old parable my business partner likes to tell about, someone takes his car into a mechanic and it's making this funny noise. You need to ask the mechanic, my car's making this funny noise. I don't know what's wrong with it. Can you please fix it? And the mechanic, listens to the car, puts his ear down, feels the car, and then takes out a hammer and just whacks the engine and boom, the car's fixed. It's not making the funny noise anymore. And says, that'll be $1,000. And the customer says, well, that's ridiculous. All you did was hit it with the hammer. Why are you charging for this? So the mechanic writes him out an itemized invoice that says, hammer, $10. Knowing where to hit the car, $990. Right? And it's like that knowing where to hit the car, making the choice between translation A, translation B, making the choice between machine translation engine A, machine translation engine B. Right, that is where the companies are adding their value. I want to go back to the chat here just to make sure. Thank you everybody for being so engaged in chat here. Because Eric, hi Eric, wrote this question, and we were talking about using large language models to clean up source content. He asked, who is accountable for cleaning up source content? Who owns the consequences of a mistake? So this is hearkening back to the topic of using large language models, not just on the translation side, but also on analyzing and cleaning up the source content. And my response to this, feel free to pipe in if you have another response. My response to this is that is what we are currently negotiating as an industry right now.
Agree.
AI has come in and just disrupted a lot of workflows. And, with machine translation, it was largely contained to our industry. So we were kind of the gatekeepers of the machine translation. If you wanted some of it, you had to come through us. But with large language models, every department in your organization is exploring how they can use generative AI to improve their workflows or make their workflows more efficient, right? And we're no longer the gatekeepers of this. So if you work for a buyer-side localization department, your stakeholders will be implementing AI with or without you. You have no choice in the matter. So you have a limited time to step into the role of trusted advisor and actually influence that decision. This is a perfect opportunity for you to have a conversation with whatever teams are creating the source content about how can we use AI to not just improve your source content from your perspective, but also make it more internationalized, so to speak, make it more conducive for localization. So that's my fancy way of saying, I don't know, Eric. I don't know whose responsibility it is. But that's the conversation that we're having as an industry. And I think the dust is going to be settling on that in the next 5 years or so.
We dream that language service providers would be maintaining the translation memory, because it requires some professional skills.
Yeah.
And unless you have a translation department in your company, you must be Tencent or Alibaba to just create, or just TikTok, some kind of this kind of big companies to create, to even have a role of a terminology manager.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you have this role, then responsibility is yours, of course, 100%. And you go to LSPs or freelancers and say, well, we have a translation memory and you work with it and that's it. But if you're smaller, if you're not localization mature, and 90% of clients, they are not so tech savvy and localization, they are not localization mature. They even don't know about what the translation memory is, so whether it exists. So it's, and then we try to own it. We cannot work without it, so we just create it. We just and then we own it. It can be exported if they switch the provider. It's no vendor lock. We call it, we are platform agnostic and technology agnostic firm that is just intended just to give the biggest value for the clients, and what platforms, what tools, we don't really care. And so I would say that the right way is that your localization services provider is the owner of your translation memory, that may be just suitable for smaller firms. If you're a bigger, then there might be some roles specifically for that.
Maybe.
We
Right?
say,
I don't know. I'm biased about this. I'm biased because I come from the LSP side. That's my background, right? But I think if you're building if you work on the buyer side and you're building your empire and you're hiring your own terminology managers, you're hiring your own lead linguists, you're not outsourcing everything that you can to a trusted partner, then I think you're probably not making the greatest decision. Why? Because it goes back to what I was saying before. You pay the experts, let the experts do what they do best, right? And if you hire a terminology manager, well, shoot. I mean, I've been around client-side businesses. It's really hard to hire someone. You got to go through all of these approval processes. You got to get budget. You got to get sign-off. You got to interview people. And that's fine. What's not fine is at a lot of companies, it's even harder to fire somebody, right? So what happens if you have the wrong terminology manager? If your terminology manager sits on the vendor side, no problem. You just call your account manager and say, look, this guy ain't working out for us. We need to rethink this situation. Taken care of, right? And that's the value that you're paying for. That's the value that you're paying for. That flexibility, that expertise, that customer service, right? Yeah, even if you're paying
I
a
have
little
an
bit
idea.
more.
I even have an idea of a startup. If somebody's in the language industry want to build some startup, then a kind of repository for terminology online for everyone and free and with lots of connectors. It might work, but name it terminology manager, not a localization platform. That of course they have the translation memory inside, but maybe open repository, everybody can contribute.
Yeah, talk to Taos. I think this has been tried before, and I love the idea, but in practice, no one wants to share their terminology. No one wants to share their stuff. But I appreciate where you're coming from on that.
I mean the resource like GitHub, right? So GitHub can be just private repositories, open repositories, or whatever. It's a tool. Everybody in the world works with GitHub, and like Hugging Face also the same thing. There is no such thing for some terminology. Nobody knows, but maybe it's too niche and not viable as economically.
And then it can be used to train it can be used to train a large language model and become obsolete overnight.
That's another idea of a startup. So but there are some firms that are not some firms, lots of firms that are gathering data to train LLM. They sell it, so the data. So and speaking about business. these low resource languages. Where Meta, where Google, where do they get
you bring up this topic with 1 minute to go? I love it. No, but it's a big topic. But this is what I'm talking about with like I think the value of large language models isn't necessarily reducing cost and making things more efficient. Yes, there is that too, but the value is being able to address things that just have not there's not been a business case for it in the past, because now it's feasible. And long tail languages, low resource languages, whatever you want to call them, this is an area where I think we're going to see a lot of improvement. Because there just haven't been a business case for a lot of these languages. I've talked to people on this podcast about it. There's just no business case for it. There's no profit motive for it, which means it's kind of relegated to universities and nonprofits. And now with the new technologies that are coming out, it's becoming more feasible for actually companies to maybe even consider thinking about translating into some of these languages. So, but like you said, maybe a topic for another podcast.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I'm watching the clock here. I think we're about to get cut off here. I've been watching. This is, I think, our first live stream on Instagram, and so welcome to all of our Instagram followers out there. Aleksander, Denis, any closing thoughts before we end for today? Where can we find you guys? Where can we find more about Alkonost? I'll bring up your website here as I answer my own question.
Everybody is welcome to our website, and there you start. You see the services, for whom we do this, and for what technology we use. We're, like I said, platform agnostic, multilingual vendor. So we just make this world easier for software developers, helping them to reach wider audience, different languages, different regions through localization. We make life easier. So you're always welcome. And I'm also available on LinkedIn. I'm also Denis. Just let's friend there.
Yeah, and maybe I can add, the future speaks every language. So let's work on it together.
I love that.
Let's translate everything.
The future speaks every language. Go buy some trust from these guys, Alkonost. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm gonna wrap us up for today. Ladies, gentlemen, chat, we are out of time for today. If you enjoyed this Nimdzi live experience, then join us next time on Monday, when I'll be talking to Charles Campbell, and we're going to be talking about the Vamos Juntos. If you guys missed the Vamos Juntos conference, like I did again, worry not. Charles is going to come on and give us a debrief on it, and tell us how you can sign up for next year. So that's going to be on Monday. Go over to Nimdzi's LinkedIn page, and you can register for that event for free today. If you are not already signed up, go ahead and do that. Once again, finally, my name is Tucker Johnson, host of Nimdzi Live, and it has been my pleasure to join you today. I appreciate our guests, Aleksander and Denis. I appreciate my colleagues here at Nimdzi Insights doing all the hard work so that I can have these fun conversations. And I appreciate everybody in our industry who fills out Nimdzi surveys and schedules briefings with our analysts so that we can include you in our published industry research. And finally, I appreciate you, the audience, everyone who's joining us live today, all of the dialogue in chat, the questions, comments, and especially the criticisms. And I look forward to next time. Cheers.